What's going on, everybody? My name is Dave Connery. I'm an artist and designer based in Southern California, and the last thing I need are more fonts or textures or graphics packs. Not only do I have a lot from my past, but I also have made some of my own. Link in the description. If you're like me, you probably get these ads in your Instagram feed. And so I was thinking to myself, well, let's see how good they are. So I'm gonna buy the first 5 that I see, and then we're gonna use them live in Affinity Photo and see how they work, whether they're any good, and how I would use them. Right out of the gate, jumping right into the big boys. Never heard of Retrosupply. They're probably one of the largest providers, at least with their own website and also on Creative Market. This is kind of a standard, and they produce quality stuff, so I'm probably okay. Now, if I look here, the first couple products, I have this retro grain already, so I guess I'll go with this Retromatic. Thank you, Dave. How'd you hear about us? Instagram post. I appreciate when creative companies are trying to figure out where people are coming from, so I try to fill that information out as much as I can. On to the next one. So this ought to be interesting. The next one on our list is True Grit Texture Supply, which looks like almost the exact same thing as the last one I just bought. We get to see them side by side and compare them. This ought to be great. That one didn't come up right out of the gate, but I already have this rusty nib one. Seamless paper textures. Let's try that. That's something completely different. Choose a package. $30. Wow, I agree to something. Download is confirmed, so let's move on. Okay, so this next one is actually a Procreate bundle from Visual Timmy. I've actually been wanting to get this, I just haven't gotten it, and I don't do, obviously, Procreate content here too much. If you guys ever want me to do Procreate stuff, please let me know in the comments below, and I'll consider it. So this one's been popping up a little bit from 640 Studio. These textures, like there's tape, and there's like looks like an overlay of plastic, like if you want to do a plastic wrap on something. I'm gonna go ahead and push through. Whoa, summer sale, 50% off for a limited time. It's still $40 freaking dollars, and that's not 50% off. I mean, I'm pretty sure my math is good enough to recognize that that's not 50. I mean, okay, I guess if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it, but geez, you better believe I'm gonna get my money's worth out of this pack. Order confirmed, let's move on. All right, so this next one is from Black Market, and this particular one right here that's being displayed is actually for Photoshop, the gradient maps or whatever. For Photoshop, they don't work in Affinity, unfortunately. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go in here to the website. I'm gonna go into, let's say, assets, and let's see what he's got. I like this print marks one, that's kind of cool. It's like you could throw that into some designs and stuff. So I may go with that one. Just little things, like he's just got all these little assets, and you can buy individuals too. I'm just giving the guy a shout out because he's interacted with me, at least here on YouTube and sometimes on Instagram. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with this print marks one. Bye now. Order confirmed, moving on! All right, and the last one comes from Design Cuts. This one is the Collage, what is it called? The Collage Creator Pro Edition. I don't know what the amateur edition would be, but here we go. Add to cart, $29. So here's the interesting thing about this one. Like, I'm basically a collage artist. This touts itself as having already prefab layouts as well as a bunch of different elements that you can bring into something. So I'm kind of interested to see how this works. It says I can add one more thing and get 20% off. Then I wouldn't be saving 20% because I'd be adding something else. So there we go, 5 new products purchased. I'm gonna go ahead and download them all, get them all loaded up into my programs, and we're gonna make something out of it. I don't know if it's gonna be trash or not, but we'll see. It's been a couple of days. I spent a considerable amount of time with Apple tech support. That's a whole other story. But I had some time to play around with some of this stuff, and now I want to share it with you. Starting off in alphabetical order this time, I'm going to start with Black Market and their print marks graphics. They come in PNG and SVG. You can see all of them here in this image here. Like every single one of these is within this collection. As I kind of just click through these, you can see that they have the same graphic done in all 3 of the CMYK colors: cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. At first, I wasn't sure that this was going to be very cool. I thought, well, you know, what will I use it for? I'm sure I'll find some reasons, because even though some of this stuff is very specific to printer marks and things that you would do in printers, and you could use this if you were doing print work and you needed to make your printer marks and all that, it'd be perfect for that. But it could also be integrated into something else. Let's just start a new document just so we can have something to mess around with. Now, of course, I could go in and individually pick and choose which ones I want to go. If I place an image, I can go in there and I can find it, and just go in and maybe my PNGs or my SVGs. I'm using the SVGs because they're vector. This one's not too complex, but I can resize it. It's meant to be resized. But what I actually did was I added all of those to my assets palette so that I could have them readily available to just pull from as I need. So I had already created a category for this, but I'm just gonna go ahead and do it again. So create a new category. I'm gonna go ahead and just grab the SVG thing and just drop them right in there. I'm gonna rename this Black Market Print Marks. First time I did it, they came in order, but now they're all over the place, which is fine. But as you can see, I can just click and drag one of these things and bring it in. And these are SVG, so they're scalable. And then I can just start using them as an element on the page. Dragging this one here. So you can see also, if you click through, there's, you know, basically there's just a bunch of squares squares, they're all curves. I think it's interesting that they didn't use, like they've got this typeface here, which I don't know what typeface is. Let's zoom in. Helvetica, and not very well kerned. What I'm actually I'm a little bit shocked by that they did this is that they left these as typefaces instead of turning these all to curves. We're just gonna go ahead and do that, convert to curves. That way, if it's not text, if for some reason I didn't have Helvetica, which would be ludicrous. If I didn't have Helvetica, they wouldn't render correctly. Anyway, so those are just some different ways that you can use this, and there are a lot of different assets here, a lot of different things to choose from, and I'm probably using some of these a lot. I mean, that's kind of neat. I don't know how often I'll use it, but I like it. For the money I spent on this one, I think this is a great deal. You guys should check out Black Market. I'll put a link to all of these people in the description. The next one is Design Cuts, and I gotta tell you, this is a stout package. There are so many elements in this package, it's bananas. I had a feeling it was gonna be a big one because of the cost on this one. I was pretty impressed by how much stuff is actually in here. If you look at this, and let me expand this out just so you can see it. I've actually renamed these because they had the ridiculously long name for these folders. But anyway, so you have elements for collages, and then you have some pre-made collages. So if I go through these elements, you can go through the architecture one, you can see it's just all these different pieces of architecture. Some of them are grayscale, some of them are full color. There's botanicals, which are flowers and plants. It looks like some of them were scanned out of vintage magazines or maybe taken pictures of by themselves. Characters are just like these weird kind of collage images. I mean, look at that, a lady with a toucan head, some custom shapes, and there's some unusual shapes here that essentially it's like different shapes, and some of them have texture, kind of like these diagrams. These are kind of interesting. It looks like a Harley engine. It's actually a Harley engine twice over. I don't know how I feel about that. There may be some copyright issues, so be careful with some of these. I mean, I don't know if that's interesting or not. I don't know, I'll leave it in there for now. But they got flowers, food and drink, hand gestures. I'm still looking for a very specific hand gesture, but I haven't seen it yet. Landscape, lips. Who likes lips? I'm wondering what models on Unsplash they took these from. Some sculptures. I like these. See, this is exactly what I'm talking about. I personally don't know what the copyright is on the Statue of David. It's owned by, I don't know, whoever owns it, the Vatican? I don't know. And, you know, so it's like, I don't know. I don't know if you can use this legally, but it's in here. Also, like, I was looking at some of these architectures. There's some buildings in here. Like, I know for a fact, this building right here is, I believe it's in Dubai. This sale building, you can't use this. This is, I mean, you could use it, but you know, if you tried to turn around and sell it as like on a shirt or something, you might get knocked for copyright infringement. This is intellectual property. I personally don't know how that works, right? Because it's a public display of something, so taking a picture of a public display and then turning around and sell it, I don't know how that works. I mean, we've got St. Basil's Cathedral. Come on. I mean, I know it's really cool, but is it usable? I don't know. I mean, it's usable for doing just regular collage. You want to make a piece of art, you want to put it up like that, that's probably fine. But if you're going to put it on a t-shirt design and try to sell a bunch of t-shirts with it, I don't know. I would tread lightly. All right, so now some of these pre-made designs are interesting. I'm not 100% sure why I would ever use these. Now, they came in 3 different types. They came in PSD, they came in PNG, and they came in JPEG. I don't know why I would ever use JPEG, and just so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. I'm gonna open one of these up. It's a transparent PNG. The JPEGs were not transparent. These are basically pulled together based on some of the elements that are already in there, which is fine. But the problem with this is that I'm not gonna turn around and just use this. This is somebody else's art. There's probably some unscrupulous people who would do that, and you know, obviously it's open for us to use, but I don't know in what context. I didn't really look deeply into the license. That said, there are basically PSD files of these. I mean, it's a prefab layout, and because these are PSD files and not, you know, Affinity Photo, there were some slight issues that I had with it when opening it up, but I mean, it's basically, you've got all these elements in here, so if you wanted to create a layout and just use some of these elements that were already in the layout, move some stuff around, play with it, add some text and whatnot, you could. I don't know why I would ever use this one, but they're in there. So for the money, is it really worth it? If all you're really using are these elements, maybe, maybe not, because there's quite a few elements in here. Let's give it a 70%. Let's give it a C+. Moving on, Retrosupply. So this was the least expensive one that I bought, and also the most disappointing. Now, I didn't read the instructions. I probably should read this. There's this README file that I could have done. Place your artwork on the canvas, select layer with the artwork, choose Retromatic in the actions, which right out of the gate is not gonna do any good because in Infinity Photo, I can't run these actions. These actions are not gonna work. I didn't look that closely at the description when I bought it. I just bought it. This thing may not necessarily work for everything, but I'm gonna keep playing with it, and if I find out differently, I'll let you know. So they've got the halftone, and this is what it is. I guess you open it up. For some reason, if I double click this, it opens up in Affinity Publisher. I have no idea why, but I'm gonna just drag it right down here into Affinity Photo. As you can see, it's empty. It's totally empty. It says hidden halftones, and then there's some sort of mask. Obviously, that has something to do with dropping the image in and then running the action, but as you can see in my macros, which is different, there is no action to be run. So I don't know if this one necessarily worked for me. They have some tutorials that you can follow. There's this file, which I think this is the action. Let's see if it works. I don't know if that will work. No, failed to open file. This might have been a fail on my part. There are some brushes. I'm not terribly stoked on these brushes. Subtle retro print brushes. Back to my original document. Pixel layer, not bad. You know, but I've already got some spray texture ones. If I did it the whole way, kind of cool, I guess. It just depends on what you could use it for. Really, I paid 15 bucks for 3 brushes. Moving on, 640 had these vintage textures. At least that's what they call them. I don't know why they would call them vintage textures. Some of these are really interesting. I really dig these. The only thing about this that bothered me is that they're small. My document here is what, 3600 by 3600? As you can see, this is considerably smaller. In fact, well, let's look at the date on here. 2100 by 2100. Not exactly small, but if I'm buying textures nowadays, like I want that texture to be large enough to fill any canvas. But as it is right now, it's like I have to stretch this out. So you just stretch them out. It's like an overlay. Change it to maybe multiply, probably not, maybe screen. And it's probably good to have a background back there. So let's just do a fill layer real quick. New fill layer. Drag that to the bottom. Let's do a gray so you can actually see what's happening. You can kind of see this line, these little lines right here. It looks like basically like cardboard. That's one option. You could hard mix it and do some really kind of cool stuff like that if you want it. There's lots of these textures. There's some really interesting ones with like plastic wrap. This one, look at this one's bananas. And then change this one to screen. I mean, I don't know if that works for my particular design. You know, it's kind of cool. You know, I'm not mad at these. I think they're all right. I'll probably use them in something. But as they start to scroll down, I mean, there's quite a few of those, which is cool. And then you get down to these ones that's like a CD box, which is fine. And like, I mean, I don't know when I'll ever use these. And then there's these, what? Wow, that's weird. I didn't see these before. What are these? Let's bring one in, shall we? Oh, it's basically just a halftone. Okay, big deal. You can make halftones anyway. I didn't really need that. You know, I mean, I guess if you wanted to just have something on the fly, you could have it. By the way, I'm, you know, about ready to release my own halftone brushes, so you don't have to worry about any of these at all. More on that next time. Actually, by the time you see this, they might even be out. Maybe. We'll see. Fingers crossed. It's been a weird week. And then as you go down, there's like stickers and more CD stuff, and then these like price stickers. But there's not many. There's 1, 2, 3. I don't know why that one's up there and not down here. I don't ask questions, I just move on. And then there's all these different tapes. But they're all like electrical tape or painter's tape. You know, I guess you could, you know, work something in. Let's work it in somehow. Taping David down. Anyway, so like that. I don't know. I may or may not use some of these. Really, these ones up here, the wraps and all that, that's the most interesting thing. But I'm not mad at them. So 640 gets 8 out of 10. Let's say 85 gives them a solid B+. I really like it when it goes hard mix like that. I'll rasterize that, invert it, and then go hard mix. Now it's starting to look like something Dave would make. Anyway, back to the task. True Grit, last one here. This one was interesting. I was actually a little bit perplexed by this, but as I started to dig deeper, I really figured something out. They've got all these different textures, and they are in Affinity Photo format, and you can buy them in different formats. I think you can buy them in PSD, or you can buy them in different ones. So they give you a choice. So I bought them obviously in Affinity Photo. If I grabbed any one of these and I just opened it up, if I zoom in, you can see it just looks like a regular paper texture. As you can see the layers over here, it's got the texture layer, which has got two different, it's really grouped, but it's got these two other layers in there, and then you've got this place your artwork group here. For our purposes, I'm just gonna grab anything from over here. Let's just grab this beautiful young lady right here. This is from Pexels, by the way. Ooh, isn't she spooky? Just in time for Halloween. So go back to the layers, and I'm just gonna drag that in there. It doesn't need to be on that particular artwork layer right there. It just has to be in that space. I tested this out and it worked. But again, it just looks like, hey, there's a texture overlay. What's the big deal? Why can't I just drop a texture onto that? And I'll show you exactly why. We're gonna go back over to our guy here, and I'm just gonna go Command-Shift-M. Let's find that same texture. I think it was Satine. I just drop that right on top. And as you can see, just texture. Technically, it's an Affinity Photo document. You can drop into documents like this. It just looks like a regular texture. So if I went and just did like, say, oh, let's multiply. But you kind of lose a little something. If I go back here and look at this, there's just a little bit more richness to this. Whereas this looks like a little bit like it's missing a little something. Or if I turned around and did maybe screen or, you know, color dodge or overlay, or, you know, it's not quite there. And I was like, how does that work exactly? What's going on? So obviously I dug deep, and it didn't take long to dig deep because all the information is right here. Essentially what they have done is, with all of these different textures, is they've broken them out into the standard texture, which is mostly like any kind of shadows, and then midtones, and then the color value of whatever color value it might have. And then they separated the highlight onto a separate layer. So that way the texture can be multiplied and the highlight can be screened. And you can see it's screened at actually 25%. So if I even wanted to bust that up a little bit more, I can put it up there like that. It might not look good, so I'll bring it back down. And that way it just looks like it's printed on that texture. And again, if I tried to do that here, you know, I'm not going to get that same depth. This is like a most pure area of the texture there, and then same here. If you just look at the difference there, look at how much depth and richness you have in this one versus this. This actually looks kind of blurry because you're not getting any of that highlight. It's something I'm gonna have to look into more, because pulling the highlight out as a separate little image, I mean, that takes some work. It's gonna take some process. It's probably not that difficult. It's just one of these things where you just kind of have to, you know, experiment until you find a formula that works. And they're good size. If you look at the size, 2800 by 2800, so not the biggest. When I produce a texture pack, anything that I produce is, you know, usually, except unless it's like, you know, like small images and whatever, like piecemeal and stuff like that, most of my textures are at least like 3000, 3600 at the smallest size, sometimes much bigger. But I'm not mad at 2800. It still works. It's still resizable. So, you know, it's decent. I think it was a fair price for what I got. How often will I use it? I don't know. But at least I have it available to me, and you know, there it is. And if you wanted to check it out, you could. Again, link to all of these things are in the description. I believe if you're able to find a good set of assets, whether it's textures or fonts or whatever kind of digital assets that you can find, if you can find those that integrate into your work on a regular basis, then you're golden. In fact, I created my own assets pack called Stained, and I used it in this video right here. You should go check that one out next. Okay, guys, I'm out. Remember, be good today, be even better tomorrow. See ya.